Thank you for auditing the Always Positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's had a on and off relationship with Lana Del Rey's music. I'm going to be reviewing Blue Bannisters, her second album in this year, and her third album that I have ever listened to, and her third album that I have reviewed. Now apparently that's going to be pretty good for me because this is actually partially a compilation of a bunch of older songs that she had written. But the question that I asked myself is, should I really review this album? You see, in order for me to review something, I have to have the time, I have to like it, and I have to have something to say about it. Well, I have the time, and I do like it, but is there something to say? Is this album, to use a provocative word, too naked? Is it too much just Lana Del Rey's voice and her songwriting? This is the first of those three albums that is not produced by Jack Antonoff. Fans of this channel will know that I have a very on relationship with Jack Antonoff's production. And without his wizardry, without his Rick Rubin-esque touch, will this have something for me to say? It's very good when she is just standard issue. When she is, forgive the pun, textbook Lana Del Rey. She's still very good. You know, piano-led, smoky, self-destructive, substance-abusing, bad girl chanteuse with daddy issues, and a heartbreaking voice. All those things go together, and they're quite great. But is that going to be enough? I'm happy to say that there are 3 moments on this album, 3 songs on this album, which ensure that I absolutely had to review it. 3 songs which I believe break out of the mold of the textbook Lana Rey and make it something that I had to talk about. What 3 moments are those? Stay tuned to the rest of the video to find out. Before I get there, I want to workshop a little bit more what is a textbook Lana Del Rey song, at least in 2021, at least based on what I've heard on these 3 albums. I think in a lot of ways, this might sound like a diss, but it's actually a compliment. She sort of sounds like the baby of Harry Nilsson and Taylor Swift. If you don't know Harry Nilsson's music, he was a great Los Angeles songwriter, singer-songwriter, very likable, but self-destructive, a complete F-up in his life, plagued by drug usage and self-doubt and bad parenting and being parented poorly, hauntingly beautiful lyrics, a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous voice. I think he's one of these kind of secret figures behind a lot of the singer-songwriters that we're listening to these days, because I think a lot of the producers, and especially people in Los Angeles, once they start hearing Harry Nilsson, they realize that what he said in the 70s is basically what they're living through now. And I hear a lot of that in Lana Del Rey's music. The Taylor Swift is maybe less clear, but I would say in the first of all, whatever this revolution is of non-electronic music, this acoustic music. Try saying acoustic music at home. Tell me in the comments if you said it properly. This acoustic movement, which is very clearly happening, we're moving away from keyboards and automated sounds and towards warmer, lush, hugely sweater sounds, right? That's happening in Taylor Swift, that's happening in Lana Del Rey, but also the way that Lana Del Rey presents her life feels very similar to me to the way that Taylor Swift shows her life. It's somewhat personal. To a certain extent, it's not fully personal because you require some kind of secret code. It's a roman à clé, you know, where you have to decipher who's who, and when she talks about Jenny, who is she talking about? Now, if I was a Lana Del Rey fan, if I was a super fan of her, a Ray head, what do Lana Del Rey fans call themselves? Lana stans? I'm gonna go with Lana stans. If I was a Lana stan, I would know who all these people are. I would get the point of her life that she's talking about. I would understand that when she talks about Blue Bannisters, that might refer to some house that she has somewhere in California that actually has blue banisters because she put it on her Instagram, right? So there is an element of where we're missing the code here. The other way is it seems that there is this very conscious, and I see this in Billie Eilish, I see this in Lorde, I see this in Lana Del Rey, I see this in Taylor Swift, where female friendships are the top of the top. Just like my girls, you know, we're together and ride or die and I'm there for you. And the men in their lives are down here, right? At worst, they are abusive or neglectful or emotionally absent quasi monsters who are good for very little except for fleeting emotional comfort and fleeting sexual satisfaction, right? This bizarre friendship and lovers. Along with the friendship, I also note something here which I sense with all of those previously mentioned singers, with it's almost kind of a cult feel, like a Yaya sisterhood cult feeling going on here, where these very tightly knit communities of women are centered around this central figure, this central very famous figure, and they're creating this strong network. To be clear, I'm not saying anything is bad about any of those things I just described, right? I don't know what it's like to be famous and to try to date men. It must be terrible, right? And I don't know what it's like to have a very tight unit of friends all around you at all times. So, let's get to this album. Let's go through it. Let's get to the 3 great moments that make this album not too naked and not too blue. We will be talking about the color blue quite a bit. It opens up with a song called Textbook, which is actually sort of how I feel about this song. It opens up and it's kind of a textbook Lana Del Rey song, which, as I mentioned, is good. It starts off talking about her daddy issues. I'm very happy to say the daddy issues all the way throughout here. I don't want that to sound as though I'm looking down on the sense of daddy issues. We all have daddy issues, right? The way that she sings about them, I think, is very honest and is very important. She has a fairly typical Lana Del Rey chorus. I like the bridge a fair amount. I like the question of saying whether or not she's too much like this person. I find it interesting that she makes a passing reference to being at a Black Lives Matter rally. This seems like an honestly admitting that it was just a thing that she did, but not something that was very close to her heart. I'm not in a position to really analyze this too clearly. But this felt more like a temporal marker of when she recorded this album and less like actually talking about Black Lives Matter. The next song, Blue Banisters, is one of these cryptic songs that I just can't decode. I mean, thanks to Lyric Genius, I found out that her dogs are named Tex and Mex. So most of these famous singers have to have dogs that are very important. Billie Eilish, Clairo, yeah, most of them do. Most of them have, put in the comments, other singers who have famous dogs. But beyond that, all these references to being on a John Deere, talking about Oklahoma all the time. It's nice. I mean, it's kind of a sleepy song with nice voices kind of jumping on and on. And it really emphasizes, after what I would consider to be a very, very Taylor Swifty chorus, the third verse emphasizes this sisterhood and these sisters, these friends of hers, who are going to paint her blue banisters green. This is fairly simple color theory about blue meaning sad and green meaning happy, green meaning rebirth. She makes reference to May. I like that. I like that we're getting this album right before winter hits and we have a song of hope about spring. People ask me what my favorite season is. That's not true. I'm a French professor, so I ask my students what's their favorite season so they can learn the vocabulary. And then I tell them my favorite season is spring for that very reason. This theme of blueness is going to continue throughout the album, going from blue to green. That was unintentional. I actually hate this shirt because of the way it's wrinkled down like this. The only time I've ironed in the past 6 years was I was trying to get this fixed. And it just bothers me, but my wife promises me that nobody cares. Tell me in the comments and subscribe and smash the like bucket if you hate this as well. You may hate, if you're a Lana Del Rey fan, my opinion of the next song, Arcadia. This is too much. My body is a map of LA. I used to live in Los Angeles, Franklin Avenue. I like Los Angeles. It's one of my favorite cities in America. I don't look down on it. I think it's a great place. Amazing, vibrant, artistically rich. I think it deserves to be the subject of so many songs. The way this is done is just a little too on the nose. I do like the resolution at the end, the way the song resolves a bit. And I think there's a depth to one of her lyrics which might have been intentional or might not. She said that she is not from the land of the palm trees. And let me tell you something about Los Angeles. Neither is Los Angeles. Palm trees are not native to that city. It's part of the great poetry of Los Angeles. Its trademark was displaced from somewhere else. Its trademark is inauthentic. The trees that you associate with Los Angeles are not from Los Angeles, and they are watered with water that is stolen from Arizona. Everything about palm trees in Los Angeles is emblematic of the city, both its exoticism, its ability to create that California dream, while also its deeper and more seedy side. But as far as a love letter to Los Angeles, a love letter to California, I could just do without it. Then there's an interlude, which I don't get. It's very clearly, I think it must be from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Ennio Morricone, which always autocorrects to Morrison in Apple Notes. I don't really understand why this is here. I guess this is trying to set a division between the opening songs and this next song, mixing it together with a trap beat. But throughout the rest of the album, there's no trap beats. Whatever tendency she had in the past of mixing in hip-hop with her style of music isn't here. As I am implying, if there's a problem with this album, it is that there isn't enough happening. It's too naked, it's too blue. It's just a blue, naked Lana Del Rey playing piano and singing these songs. So this out of nowhere interlude is nice, but I don't understand how it fits thematically. Black Bathing Suit is a great song. Almost one of the songs I'm talking about, but not quite there yet. I would say it's the best example of these textbook songs. A slow piano and voice, very breathy, directly references quarantine. I really enjoy the lyrics. I've talked on previous videos about Lana Del Rey, the way that I have had to interact with her music throughout the years, through knowing women and the way that they relate to her music. And often I've talked about how if someone over-relates with Lana Del Rey, it might mean that they're not in a good place to be in a good relationship. And I like that kind of rawness. It's the same kind of rawness that you find with Harry Nilsson, right? Where you find a lot of rappers or a lot of singers, a lot of male singers who give themselves, I just watched that Lynyrd Skynyrd documentary. He has a lot of songs like that as well, where they just say, listen, I'm not a great person and I really want somebody better, but I don't deserve them. That's sort of the thesis of a lot of her music. And I really like this theme of being in quarantine and the feeling of it being the end. If this is the end, I want a boyfriend, someone to eat ice cream with and watch television. I like the simplicity and the truth of that. A great chorus, kind of a shuffling song going on here, an odd kind of tempo, and going over and over again about how the only thing that fits her is her bathing suit. She seems to do a lot of work with clothing. I'd be curious to know, maybe someone could tell me, what are all the songs that reference summer dresses and bathing suits and hats? It feels like you could teach vocabulary of clothing just with Lana Del Rey music. But I really appreciate the drums all the way through, just adding extra elements to here. The bridge, the drums actually get kind of crazy, and I really like how in the outro she seems kind of funny. There's a couple points on this album where she gets kind of silly, saying weird kind of ironic stuff, which I really enjoy. If You Lie Down With Me, she sounds high or drunk, and I like that. I like that she sounds audibly boozy, a little bit out of it. Her vocals seem much more loose. There's more vocal movement, there's a slight modulation, maybe even a key change in the middle of the verse. And then the song appears to be about sex. I mean, it's using dancing as a metaphor for sex, but it's a good sex song, I would say. It's an effective sex song that makes you think about sex without being vulgar, still being fairly specific. You know, dance me all around the room 6 times over and over again, that kind of stuff. She does at times get over-stylized with her vocals. Like she says stowaway, and she's like, stowaway. Which I get it, right? That's part of how she's so popular is people love the glissando and the way, I mean, that's how I first knew about her, was video games. You know, just the way she's able to play with these vowels. There is also a really nice la 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 section in this song and some great horns. Again, with an album that is this naked and blue, whenever things are not naked, it really pops up. When there's these little added elements, it really makes it nice. Beautiful is another gentle piano, whispery, breathy singing song. Another song singing about being bad. Then she has this line. And speaking of a textbook, again, people ask me, what book should I have? You're a professor. What book should I have in my library? Even though I'm a French professor, I think the most important book anybody can have is a copy. A big, chunky textbook from an art history class is very necessary. She talks about Picasso and his blue period. Now, Kanye compares himself to Picasso. Paul McCartney wrote a song about Picasso dying. The Modern Lovers wrote a song about Picasso being a jerk. And here we have this question about Picasso, whether or not his sadness created the greatness of his blue period. You're probably familiar with the blue period by Picasso. Very stylized looking people, and the colors are very gray and blue and blue and blue. Beautiful. I actually prefer the rose period that came after, but the blue period is wonderful. And it's part of the mythology of Picasso, that he had so many different phases. He had his blue period, he had his rose period, rose meaning pink in French, rose. He had his Cubist period, he had his African expressionist period. He just kept going through and revolutionizing art every single time he would do something. So Lana Del Rey asked this question: what if someone had asked Picasso not to be sad? She then posits we never would have had the blue period. I think there's a flaw in this idea. I understand. I'm going to be nitpicking. I understand the idea. She seems to believe that her sadness is the origin of her greatness, of her great art. I think that's not true. I think if Lana Del Rey got herself well, she got off drugs, she learned how to use her support network better, and became a happy, stable person, her music would get better. That's personally how I feel, but I feel like she's a great artist and she doesn't need the crutch of sadness and substance abuse to make her interesting. Still, this is her point. What if someone had asked Picasso? I can tell you what would have happened if someone had asked Picasso, don't be sad. Picasso probably would have swore at them and left. That's the thing about Picasso. That's the thing about Kanye. That's the thing about artists. You can ask them all you want. You can ask them to be different, but they're just not going to do it. So that's what I would say to you, Lana Del Rey. Just don't listen to anybody. You're an artist. And listen to your collaborators, but don't listen to someone who asks you not to be sad. I really like the piano effects at the end of the song as well. The next song is another one of these almost songs that breaks out of this naked textbook mode. It's Violet for Roses. It's a breakup empowerment anthem. I've listened to a lot. When you review as much new music as I do, you hear a lot of good breakup empowerment anthems. This is a top-level breakup empowerment anthem. Ever since I fell out of love with you, I fell back in love with myself. It's also a little bit about the end of COVID summer and learning how to enjoy seeing people in dresses without masks. It's very sweet, it's very well done, and it's filled with this great lyrical trick where the choruses change slightly from one to the next. They follow a similar pattern, but they're not exactly the same. It's some of her best songwriting lyrically on the album. Ever since I fell out of love with you, I fell back in love with the streets, and God, does it feel sweet like a summer breeze. Ever since I fell out of love with you, I break dance to the backbeat, and God, does it sound sweet like it's playing just for me. I'm happy. I'm a happily married guy, you know? So I can't relate to this now. But I have broken up in the past, and I have happily broken up in the past. And the idea of breakdancing to a backbeat, that is such a funny image and such an accurate image, to the point where I imagine Lana Del Rey doing a head spin with, on some cardboard on the ground, and I imagine myself doing it. What a great way to describe the liberation from this relationship. And I love the central metaphor of someone trying to force her to trade in her violets for her roses. Roses which are theoretically more valuable, which are theoretically a higher caliber flower. But let's be honest, violets are way cooler than roses. Violets are amazing. Roses are overpriced, overhyped, they die too quick. They're used in way too many metaphors, except for this one. So I really enjoy this songwriting here. I really like the strings too that come in a little bit later. But we're now leading up to the first song that this is what happened. Yesterday, it's raining out here in Western New York. It's been raining. It's been dark. It's been kind of a rough week. Lots of weird stuff happening at home and stuff. But I was listening to this album. I was like, God, I want to review it because I'm really interested in following Lana Del Rey, but nothing's really grabbing me. I was on my way, walking in the rain with my hood on and my mask on and my headphones in, and then Dealer comes on. And I said to myself, probably out loud, that's it, I'm reviewing this album. This is a great break, just in time. Second half of the album, this song just comes out of absolutely nowhere. It's drum-led, nice kind of junky sounding drums on the ride cymbal. A simple organ is over it. Some other singer is singing. I didn't even write down his name. I don't know. I actually thought it was a female at first doing a Amy Winehouse impersonation, but just this catchy and awesome verse sung by someone else. Talk about breaking up the naked blueness of the album. This is a light, dark, but a funny, dark song. And it's got these drums and these interesting kind of funny lyrics about don't call my dealer, he won't answer. Don't call my father, he won't either. Don't call my doctor, these figures of presumably male authority who are out of touch and how you can't reach her through them. Maybe continuing on this theme of a triumphant breakup. You can't get a hold of me, I'm cutting off, new phone, who dis? And I just love Lana Del Rey in this song. She has this great way of singing, give you all my money, give you all my money, give you all my... Just this totally out of character for me, based on what I know of her 2 albums that I've reviewed before. Feel free, if you're a Lana stan, to tell me other songs where she's like this, where she's loose and free. And then she just belts, basically screams, I don't want to live and I don't want to give. Now this is 100% a reference to Harry Nilsson's I Can't Live If Living Is Without You. The same words, I can't live, I can't give anymore, right? It's just absolutely a direct reference to that. But it has that same unhinged Nilsson feeling of just somebody at their absolute limit. And she's just yelling. It's awesome. I wish she would yell more. Can she do an album of just yelling? And then at the end it gets playful. You know, all the circuits are busy, goodbye. All the circuits are busy, you're high. Just a great song. And this makes me so happy that she released 2 albums. I liked Chemtrails Over the Country Club. I think I like this album more, because I think it's more, even though it doesn't have Antonoff, I know, the textbook Lana Del Rey is so enjoyable to listen to, even if it isn't always remarkable. And then these remarkable moments are so good. Thunder, strings lead up at the start, so one of the few songs that starts with not just a piano or not just a guitar. You Roll Like Thunder, referencing thunder earlier. They're talking about a thunderbird. Thunder appears to be one of the themes in this album. Guitar comes in. It's some like nice layering with the guitar. And then she's talking all about Mr. Brightside. That's just another Taylor. Isn't that a Taylor Swift song? Mr. Brightside? I don't know. There seems to be a thing against optimistic men, which is a problem, because I'm pretty optimistic. Wildflower, Wildfire. This is my second song, which I would say is absolutely spectacular. Simplicity of the piano and the voice really pays off with the co-production by Mike Dean. Mike Dean, of course, Kanye's better half, for lack of a better term. He adds these weird crunchy drums at the end, and she lets her voice break at the right time. The lyrics here are maybe the best lyrics on the whole album. Talking about how she is running on stardust, hot fire and hot coffee. It actually reminds me a little bit of that Chance the Rapper song, Hot Fire, Hot Coffee, Hot Damn, you know, whatever song that is. But these lyrics were this combining a wildfire and wildflower, like comparing herself as something that's wild and free and grows and is beautiful and can't really be tamed, versus something that's wild and free and beautiful and destructive and can't be tamed. A wildflower and a wildfire actually have a lot more similarities than they do difference, except one is created and the other is destructing, right? So I really enjoy this. Not to turn into a wildflower fire, to light up your night with only my smile and nothing that burns. Baby, I'll be like a wildflower. I live on sheer willpower. I will do my best never to turn into some I don't know, lyrics got cut off there. You get the point. I don't have a script. I have notes, and you see my notes just cut off there. But I love this idea of her trying to be a flower and not a fire, but still being wild. Then we have the best illustration of what her problem with her father actually is. I find this absolutely fascinating, because this is the thing about abuse. If you are a child, you are rarely abused by two parents. You're usually abused by one parent, and then the other parent helps. Now, they might not actively help, but it's the passive help that teaches the child how worthless they are. Okay? So you have one parent who says you're a piece of garbage, and then the other parent saying, oh, don't say that, but not really doing much else. These lyrics, my father never stepped in when his wife would rage at me, so I ended up awkward but sweet. It's a beautiful explanation of what happens. And part of the reason why I think we need to glorify divorce. I do. Divorce is great. It's a great institution. I love marriage. I am happily married. Marriage is a great institution. Marriage is a way better institution because of divorce. Because if you're in an abusive relationship, or if your partner's abusive with the child, you have to show the child it's over. Cut. Done. 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 Every other weekend if you're lucky. Go away. That's what the child needs to hear. And that's what Lana Del Rey never got. And so that's what she's saying is what created her as she is. And I think it's a beautiful and necessary thing, as we're just getting to better understand the nature of familial trauma and abuse, to put so much blame on somebody whose guilt was passivity. The lines go on, later than hospitals, stand still on my feet, comfortably numb, but with lithium. And she's implying that this is where her poetry comes from. Again, I believe if Lana Del Rey gets healthier, she will be better, she'll be a better artist. I think the same thing about Kanye. I don't believe in the myth of the tortured genius. I think a lot of geniuses happen to be tortured. But you got Edouard Manet, he was a genius, he wasn't tortured. Bach was a genius, he wasn't tortured. There's plenty of not tortured geniuses, and hopefully that's where we're headed with Lana Del Rey. Nectar of the Gods, speaking of tortured, this is cool because it's acoustic guitar led, great melody work, and just these reaching vocals. By the end of the album, I'm just so in love with her voice. Even on a song like this, which again is a little bit less produced. And she makes a direct reference to being on heroin, which is dangerous, I think, because a lot of people look up to her and it might be normalizing heroin usage, but it's honest, so what are we going to do? Talking about kind of going wild on her, like going wild on her lover, like I'm going to go wild on you. I don't know if this is a reference to the song Crazy on You by Heart, but it feels like it is. Used to dream about people like you, I don't know why. Used to sing about people like you, but now I just get high. And she says that she's going to get crazy like the color blue, this blue image coming back. And I'm ready. I'm ready for the rose period for Lana Del Rey. Living Legend is maybe the most genuine song. I don't know why. This song feels like it's the most true to her heart. Very clear singing, talking about this lover of hers who brings her to heaven and hell. And she does one of the coolest things on the entire album, this kind of fake guitar solo that she does with her voice. And it's so fuzzy that the first 30 seconds of it, I thought it was a guitar. I'm sitting there on the elliptical at the YMCA, doing my thing. I'm like, that's a guitar. No, that's her voice. That's good. No, I'm settling on her voice. Maybe I'm wrong. Cherry Blossom appears to be another song about female friendship. You can tell someone what you can't tell me. It's fine, but again, it's maybe one of these a little too naked songs. And now you're wondering, there's one song left, and I've only said 2 of these songs transcend the textbook Lana Del Rey that I like. The naked blue Lana Del Rey that I like, that isn't quite enough for me to do a review of. That means this last song is one of those songs. Musically, it doesn't do that much different. She's sort of in a Joni Mitchell singing mode, which is quite nice. Just another fairly simple song. But the lyrics, I just cannot tell you how important songs like this are. Sweet Carolina. According to Lyric Genius, this might be dedicated to her sister. It doesn't matter. It's a postpartum song. okay? Women, after giving birth, and before giving birth, their brains are essentially, it's basically a lottery. And the odds are not very good that your brain is not going to get absolutely clobbered by hormones and changes in the body. Completely out of your control. The reproductive process for women is, I mean, it's unfair physically, obviously, because men can't experience that, and we understand that. So I know I'll never have to cut my perineum so that someone can come into existence, right? But it's the mental aspect that we don't actually talk about enough. We don't talk about the baby blues. It's a very serious thing that affects millions and millions and millions of women. And we're not talking about it. Lana Del Rey's talking about it with this beautiful song. Was I crying at the YMCA? You know me. I'm a teddy bear. I was crying my eyes out. Not because I'm a woman, but because I'm a human being. And I've known so many women that have gone through this period and understanding that, like, nobody is checking in with them. No one is caring about them. Everybody's making fun of them or asking them to do so much. And there's so much pressure on them to succeed, so much pressure on them. And La Leche Mafia is telling them that they have to breastfeed or else they're monsters. And a whole series of people are just telling them what to do all the time. And there's no support, very little support, not enough support. There's some support out there. Okay, and if you're one of those people who supports it, I hope Lana Del Rey gives you permission to use the song. But there needs to be more support. So I'm putting this up there as the feminist song of the year. Yep. Wait, WAP didn't come out this year. That came out last year. Well, anyways, it's either first or tied as the feminist song of the year. The song that we absolutely need. And it's a beautiful, gorgeous song written to all women who are going through this phase, who have their brains taken hostage by things that are outside of their control so that they could bring another soul into existence on planet Earth. And they need a song too. Thank you, Lana Del Rey, for this great album. It's awesome. It's really, really awesome. I'm really happy that it's so good. Okay, well, I'm gonna go have lunch. I hope, check out tomorrow's gonna be a Halloween episode that'll explain why my face is as naked as this album almost was. Okay, there's the camera.